I'm here today with NHL analyst, host, and reporter, the one and only Nick Gismondi.
What's
So,
up,
so
Zach? Thanks
Nick,
for having me.
yeah, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. So tell us how did you get started in the broadcasting industry?
Yeah, for me, I kind of sort of fell into it. I mean, I think in the back of my mind as a kid, I always wanted to be in that business at some level. But I was a hockey player from as early as I can remember. So, like any kid that's growing up in a hockey state or a hockey city, I grew up in Detroit. The goal was to make it and play in the NHL, but we all know how difficult it is to make and be a professional athlete. So I went as far as I could go with it. I basically played 1 year of juniors, and unfortunately I got hurt really badly when I was 15, 16 years old. But luckily my high school had a radio station, 88.1 FM, a fully working radio station that you would learn how to do all the things on it. And now this was back in the mid 90s, so the technology was not the technology you guys had. We were recording on actual tapes and 8 tracks and whatnot. It wasn't it wasn't the digitized world that we live in right now. But I basically started as a DJ with the idea that I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. And living in a very hockey infused area like Detroit was, it became pretty easy to sort of climb myself up through the ranks. My mom and dad tell stories about me running around the house when I was a little kid with a Fisher Price, Mr. Microphone. So I mean, I always sort of kind of had it in me. And then when I got my first taste of it in the '96, I just fell in love with it. And luckily, like I said, I was in a hockey infused community, so I was able to broadcast the games for my junior team that I was going to play for on that radio station, 88.1 FM. And then I was did that for about 2 years. And my senior year of high school, I ended up announcing our Ontario Hockey League team, the Plymouth Whalers, which was a big step up. And that was on Fox Sports Radio in Detroit. So that got a lot of play. And then when I graduated high school, I started announcing for Fox Sports Detroit on television. Did that for a couple of years. And then I moved to Los Angeles in 2005 and actually lived down by where you guys were. I ended up finding my way to Newport Beach and did voiceovers and started working for NBC Sports in 2007 and ended up doing that for 13 years until the Vegas Golden Knights came into the NHL. And then I transitioned from doing Olympic sports on NBC to being an announcer in the NHL for the last 7 years.
I think that's an incredible story of how you can get up into the ranks and kind of being fortunate that you're able to move to LA and kind of become into the center of a massive hub. What was the coolest thing that you were working on with NBC Los Angeles?
Yeah, and it was NBC Sports Network, so it was national TV for me. So it was my first time I was really sort of being exposed to like the entire country, and that steps up the pressure. But being able to do the Olympic Games from 2008 all the way to 2016 when I left NBC for the NHL was incredible. I mean, Olympic athletes are a completely different breed than professional athletes because they get one shot at glory every 4 years on the big stage. Now they have regular seasons every year, just like the rest of us, and they have championships, but everybody knows how valuable an Olympic medal is, whether it's gold, silver, or bronze. And to see the fortitude and the perseverance that they go through to, basically fund themselves. They're not making $10 million a year. They're not making $100,000 a year. So for most of them, the journey and the fortitude and the passion is to a level that I've never ever seen before in sports.
So, Nick, what are some of the things that you've done in the past couple of years working with the NHL? And was that like your starting goal when you first stepped in the booth?
100%. When I started announcing in 1996, the goal was to be an announcer in the NHL. But there are 32 of those jobs, and as of recently, there's 32 of those jobs. Up until 2017, there was only 30 of those jobs. So you got to be really good, and it takes a long time to break in because guys don't and girls don't let go of those jobs very easily. So I tell everybody that, is eager and anxious. And if your goal coming out of college is to be an announcer in the NHL, you got to pump your brakes and you got to dig in and you got to go pay your dues and you got to go do the minor leagues and you probably got to go do stuff you don't want to do. And you probably aren't going to be in a top 5 market. So you're probably not staying in LA. You're probably going to Oklahoma or Sioux City, Iowa, or, you know, some no name town in the middle of the country that nobody's ever heard of in a flyover state. And you're going to have to dig and you got to work your way up. It took me 22 years in the business to get a job in the NHL. And when it finally happened in 2017, it was incredible. But the work doesn't end there. You still have to grind. You still have to work. You still have to be really good at your job every single time you go on the air, because there's always somebody else waiting around to take your gig from you.
So having a goal that's so niche, you also do world team tennis. Why is it so important to be versatile within the industry?
Versatility is absolutely everything. Again, there are very few of broadcasting jobs out there. So knowing a bunch of different sports benefits you. Knowing every single role on a broadcast benefits you. I've produced, I've worked an audio board, I've written, I've voiced over, I've directed shows, I've worked the camera, I've been a field producer. The more knowledge that you can gain about everything else that's going on around you will help you do your job better. When I sit down in front of a camera when I'm getting ready for a show, I know what I can do to make the audio guy's life easier because I can mic myself. I know what I can do to make the lighting guy's life easier by making sure my makeup is right and by making sure I'm sitting in the right spot. I know what I can do to make the producer's life easier by being prepared and understanding his timing and being flexible and comfortable enough to ebb and flow with changes that he might need to make last minute. I mean, when I was in Vegas, we had a whole pregame show figured out and had a meeting about it for an hour. And 20 seconds before we went on air, the D block became the A block and the A block was the C block. And as a guy that's OCD, you have to quick pivot, change, and not show any ounce of that on television. And knowing what that producer is going through in that moment and knowing what everybody else was going on and how much of a scramble there was in the television truck, you just move and flow, and it makes everybody better if you all know everybody else's job. So versatility is the biggest key in this business.
How hard is it for someone like yourself to have people in your ear talking to you, multiple people in your ear, and you're trying to also talk to live television?
That's the hardest thing to kind of get used to. I mean, after I've been doing this for 28 years now, almost 3 decades, so I'm comfortable with it now. But I mean, it's the hardest skill, and the only way to learn it is to just have it happen. But again, it's your comfortability with what's going on, and it's taking in that information and still being able to talk and deliver and to do your things. And that's where a good producer comes in. It becomes a team. Like, your producer knows you. And obviously there's going to be times when you don't have the same person every time in your ear, but you're able to know each other's tendencies. He knows when I'm pausing. He knows when he can get in my ear. He knows this and that. I know when he's busy in the truck, when I can hit him on talk back and be like, hey, I'd love to see that replay again, or hey, let's try to break after this because it's a natural pause. So you kind of learn each other, and there's a lot of value in that too. But the only way to get used to somebody talking to you when you're talking is to just do it and get repetitions. That's not something you're going to learn in a book, and it's not a normal talent.
Gotcha. Nick, I have one more question for you. What
Yeah.
is one piece of positive advice you would give to someone interested in going into your industry?
Yeah, you're going to hear the word no all the time. It's constant. So get comfortable with no and don't let it affect you. The best thing that you can do is when you hear no, when somebody discounts you before you even get started, is just stay at it, stay persistent. Turn the no into a maybe. And then as soon as you turn that no into a maybe, stay on it, stay persistent. Don't be overly buggy, but stay persistent, show confidence in yourself. And then as soon as you do that, you'll turn that maybe into a yes. But don't be in a hurry. It takes time, and be willing to pay your dues.
Okay. Thank you so much for the time, Nick. I appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, Zach.